everybody? My name is VTech Guy. We're here with Bowens and Malin. You guys want to plug your channels? Because I know you guys got YouTube channels now, too.
K-Rated Gaming. I
Yeah.
mean, I haven't posted in a little while because I'm deciding what I really want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But K-Rated Gaming, check me out if you want. Give me a like, give me a subscribe. Let me know what you want to see, and because I'll do just about anything.
Send them some
That
love.
explains to like Madden, WWE 2K.
Send him some love.
That was on my mind. And then what is yours, Malin? You got a channel too now.
Mine is called Alpha Sports Gaming. We just started up, and we're doing everything out of the blue. TW, reviews, Madden, NBA, anything you think of.
Yup. So, let's have our discussion today about the great Sanada. Saya Sanada. Sanada, the one and the only. We're going to talk about kind of his beginnings in TNA, his great match with Austin Aries and how he got the X Division title from Austin Aries in Japan, how that led to his future, and kind of ultimately how he left TNA with the Revolution and everything, because things were a little bit awkward in 2014. All right, TNA was going through that time where we're gonna go to Japan. We're in at this time. There was a promotion. Let me look it up. Wrestle One. Yep.
Wrestle One.
Yes, Wrestle One, which Sanada was a part of in there, and this is how he got his opportunity to debut at Lockdown with the Great Muta and Yasu, take on Chris Sabin and Bad Influence inside of Steel Cage, and then later he would team up with Tigre Uno, take on the Bromans, other stuff like that. But the big one is him defeating Austin Aries when they went to Japan, and I actually have the tape over here that I watched a couple days ago, and it was awkward because of the fact that they were doing, of course, the one night only stuff a lot, and I mean a lot. And it got to, they're still kind of doing it, but they're not doing it as badly, and it kind of, the whole point of one night only should be one night only, not repeatedly year after year. But they tried something new with this whole Japan one, alright? And we had a lot of good matches there also. There was Abyss, who had Abyss's match was decent. His Monsters Ball match, even though it ended, the referee called the match. I don't know what was going on there. Then there was some great tag team action from other people. There was the Magnus title defense against the guy who won the Wrestle One tournament to take on Magnus. I think his name was Kai, I believe. Yeah. But let's talk about Sanada. And what do you guys like about Sanada? Clearly, modern day Sanada is much better. I mean, he got a lot of hype earlier in his career, which led to him going to TNA, of course, and doing Wrestle One. But it seemed like once he got to America, like a lot of other people who go from other countries to America, he kind of fell flat. And then when he went back to Japan, I don't know what the heck I just hit. Then when he went back to Japan, he's doing great stuff now in New Japan. Much darker Sanada, to say the least. But what are you guys' thoughts? So I can stop talking.
On Sanada as a whole?
Just stuff you remember. Because, I mean, he was really pushed as, the X Division
He was pushed as the next big thing from Japan. They really pushed home the fact that he was going to be the next big thing in Japan, of all of American wrestling.
Anything from you, Malin?
Yeah. So basically, I feel like TNA really did drop a bomb with Sanada when they let him go, because I feel like, especially if he was still there today, the X Division would be so much better. He put on great matches when he was there, and then he went on the downcline when they put him in that thing with James Storm
with the Revolution. And I think the Revolution was something that from the get-go probably wasn't going to work out.
It was meant to help out all of them, but it helped out none of them.
Yeah,
it helped out James Storm.
It helped out filler people.
It was meant to help out Perkins.
Oh, well, we saw how that ended with Manic. I mean, they completely obliterated from Suicide to Manic to the modern day Manic, completely obliterated that character, and it's kind of glad to see TJ Perkins not even wearing a mask, because
yeah.
Oh, I'm happy with that.
But to go back to this, they had him also debut that great Sanada thing, after he took on Muta and he turned heel. I couldn't take him serious as a heel with his orange hair. I'm sorry. That's why I think now with his black hair and he's more serious looking as a heel. Like, I really like that.
Like orange hair, like
you just can't really take that as a heel guy.
It just makes you a funny guy. Like people are just like, whatever.
You really can't take him too serious. I mean, he's wearing bright blue also. Bright blue, high-flying X Division guy with orange hair. I mean, that's kind of like the Mark Andrews thing. You can't really have Mark Andrews be a heel.
TNA will try.
Please don't do that.
In like the 80s.
Yeah. There's only like one guy who's successfully done that heel turn, but he's not really a heel because people still love him and people still laugh at him because he's a comedic heel. Sanada was pushed as a serious get to the top of the mountain, great Sanada guy, and I mean the Revolution was really bad because it was Sanada, Storm, Abyss, and Manic. Sorry, the Great Sanada, if you really want to say that.
It was their attempt at trying to outdo the Wyatt family.
Well, was the Wyatt family even around at this point, or it was early foundations of the Wyatt family?
It was right after.
Yeah,
like,
so
the Wyatt family debuted, and then TNA ran into this thing.
Mm-hmm. And it was weird because it was all around feuding with the Great Muta, and when you're feuding with an old man who, sadly, the Great Muta didn't really have a team of guys to be like, you have the Revolution, Muta's gonna bring in guys from Wrestle One to fight you. Like they didn't do that. There was no. I mean, they had Tajiri, but at the same time,
Tajiri came in for like one match.
I mean,
Tajiri.
I mean, but
and he's
Tajiri
like
lost. Tajiri lost also. So
he's old too.
Yeah, and it's just
this would have been the time to bring in a guy like one of the bigger names in Japan right now. Like it would have been a time to do that.
And isn't this when they introduced our favorite guy in the entire world? You can't see me, but I'm doing the finger dance. Mahabali Shira.
Yeah, this is that was the Revolution.
In all honesty, I think that's for another video. I think this is where they could have made Mahabali Shira, to say the least, but they didn't even make him, sadly. But
instead, he gave him the little finger taps.
I'm as like end my part on this, and then let you guys speak to close it up. Sanada was a guy during that awkward time of TNA where things were going really bad, like a lot of bad decisions, a lot of bad things. This was, the end of the Aces and Eights era. This was the end of AJ Styles. This was the Dixie Carter regime where we saw her on television. At the same time, we're seeing the Authority on television every single week, and
this was back when they were doing shows in New York all the time.
Yeah, and that's another thing.
Oh, I love that.
Well, I'm gonna tell you why I don't like that. All right, don't take this harsh, Malin, but the Orlando crowd is much better for getting over people. The New York crowd, you have to be blunt, honest, and you have to be effective.
Sadly, speak our opinion.
Exactly. You can't just do that.
Orlando will cheer for who you tell them to cheer for.
They don't. Yeah, they will cheer for the heels at this point. They like guys that are in Florida, Full Sail, that area. They like guys that are flashy, and this is why, even though the X Division is kind of stalled,
they're like gimmicky guys.
Even though the X Division stalled, they still got hype, all right. Whereas in New York, you can't really have a flashy guy, sadly. And I mean, people are gonna counteract that with other people, of course. Like the Bucks and other people, and tons of other flashy guys who were there. I mean, of course, what's that one company you're talking about in New York? We talked about with Anthony Ness. Hog, yeah. I mean, of course, but I'm talking about as when they're trying to put this on television, they need the crowd behind them as much as possible. And if they're not giving a good product, a good person to believe in that is champion, and the crowd can't really get behind him, I mean, there's just not much luck in terms of success.
I mean,
and I think that's why going back to Florida was
Bully Ray the
good.
champ?
Yes, but I'm talking about when Sanada was champ for the X division. But like,
oh yeah, no, we didn't want anyone but Aries.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Sanada was just like, it was the guy they tried to push that no one cared about.
Exactly, and that's why he lost it to Aries again. Like he beat Aries in Japan. That's the key thing. He beat him in Japan. People in Japan love that. People in America though were like, "What the heck? What happened?" It's because you weren't there. It's the same thing. Remember when NXT was like, "We're going to Brooklyn," and then Full Sail was like middle fingering Brooklyn the entire time William Regal was talking about it? Exactly. It's the effect of you're taking something that we're behind right here, you're putting it somewhere else so they can lose, and then you'll try to put your new product back in place of it when we come back home. People aren't going to like that. And that's the sad thing, that people didn't like that. So what happened? Flip-flopped. Austin Aries is champ. Then they're sadly...
Sanada's jobber.
And that was also the time when TNA could have saved a lot of money just staying in Orlando.
Not even 7 days later... Exactly, because they tried to get much bigger, and they were competing in the Vince McMahon area, all right? And this is a time where NXT's hot. It's 2014 is pretty hot, but at the same time, TNA could have been much hotter, I think. And I think this
that was when that was when NXT was going through their whole there was their rebranding phase basically, because it was on the network,
FCW and all that. And I think that's really what could have helped TNA if they were like, hey, you know, you see your NXT, then on Thursdays come and see us. Or, you know, come and see us on the other days of taping. But not even 7 days later, they turned Sanada heel with that Great Muta segment. And, you know, at Destination X, that's when we had Sanada take on Brian Cage and Crazy Steve for the X Division Championship. Now Brian Cage was much different back then, but you're thinking of Brian Cage on Lucha Underground. I mean, the guy can still wrestle like he's Mark Andrews, like he's like a skinny, pale white kid like me too.
Yeah, he's freaking flying.
He's flying through the air, all right? But, you know, X Division is quoted as the division without limits, Abyss, Samoa Joe. So, I mean, hey, all props for the X Division, all about being guys that are willing to do that risk of doing high-fly, flippy-dippy-doo stuff.
Like, hey, I'll climb to the top of Ultimate X, and I'm jumping off.
Mm-hmm. So, I know we're kind of going over a little bit now, but let's talk about how we would fix Sanada real quick, in TNA at least, because I know in Japan's a different beast to talk about. But say we're in New York, all right? Say your boy Austin Aries lost the title in Japan. Sanada comes back in America. They're booing the heck out of him. Are we really going to keep him face when we can just turn him heel now, let him do a dark side, black hair, black attire, I'm the champ, be arrogant, Austin Aries...
I would do Evil Foreigner.
Exactly. Exactly. And then you have Great Muta come in, and people are like, we love Muta, and then freaking that's when you have that steel chair assault. That's when you have, him attacking him with the
right
belt.
in the head.
Exactly. And then you can do this. You can have the feud with Great Muta when, Sanada's champion, which would mean more.
Completely leave James Storm out of this. Leave him away from that revival.
Yeah, James Storm should never... Revolution. James Storm should never touch Sanada's career, sadly. Because I just don't think... It just didn't work, sadly. It just didn't work.
If you wanted him with someone else, I honestly would have said Tajiri, for the sole fact Tajiri has played heel.
I would agree with that.
And it's been pretty good with it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would say this is when you bring in Tajiri. Excuse me. This is when you bring in Tajiri. This is when you bring it to Jerry, you have a heel to Jerry, and you have this element of he's saying Tajiri's my great Muta. He's my master, alright? He's my sensei. I respect him more than you, great Muta. I'm the great Sanada. You're not great anymore. You're just Muta. And I think that would have meant more if Sanada was aligned with the evil Tajiri and they were evil together and did evil things and beat up this old helpless great Muta. And then, wait for it, Austin Aries is still there. So it's like that just ties it in. All right.
Like what?
I mean, it'd be awkward to have Muta and Aries, but that's that. So, your thoughts?
Like what I thought of while you were saying that is even if Sanada's holding the title, right?
Yeah.
And then Tajiri comes out, celebrates with him. Muta comes out, celebrates, right? He's still face. Sanada's still face. He just won the belt from Aries. Everyone's all hype. And then even if both of them want him to be like their student, Tajiri wants him, Muta wants him, they fight for him basically, like to show like who's more dominant. And then at that moment when you turn Sanada heel.
Yeah. Now, it is sad to say though, I don't think Sanada could be a long-term X Division champion. I think the longest it could have ran its course is probably 3 months. 2 months. I would say at least 1 quarter.
I would have said, if anything,
Maybe.
have him drop it Ultimate X.
Yeah, I think Ultimate X is when we could have had that new, or like extravaganza, whatever they were calling it. But that could have been where everything finally hit its peak, and we saw Tajiri go on his way. Muta go back and do his own thing. But that's that. It's that. Mullins, you want to end on anything? Your thoughts?
My thoughts are, they should have picked someone who could have been more over with the crowd. Sanada at that point was a huge thing in Japan, but I don't know if he was really talked about in the U.S. like some other Japanese wrestlers were.
It's because they wanted to be friends with Wrestle One. All right, they wanted to be friends with Wrestle One to get their side of profit. They also wanted to get that that Japanese eyesight, of saying, hey, we're not just all random white guys and, sometimes racist gimmicks like Jeff Jarrett, but we actually have like a good mix of people. And I think this is at the same time, WWE didn't really have too many Asian wrestlers. I mean, they still don't really have too many, but TNA, they were trying to do that, bring a couple back in. So, but what are you thinking, Rollins?
What am I thinking on this?
Yeah, how you think? Any final thoughts on Sanada and how you would have booked him?
I think that they should have booked him more Japanese than they did. Like they tried to, they almost made it too gimmicky with how Japanese they were making him when they went to the whole Great Sanada thing, because they were basically ripping off maybe the greatest Japanese wrestler. Arguably, there's a definite I wouldn't. He might not be the greatest, but he's definitely one of the top 5 of all time. And you're basically turning it into a joke gimmick.
Yeah, but there's
if
that.
I might say,
what would you say on Sanada, Lenny? End the video for us. How would you put in your 2 cents on Sanada if you were to fix Sanada in 2014 when they kind of were unlucky, to say the least?
my opinion on it is, I understand why they put the belt on him, because you could have someone that's ultimately loved somewhere else but is hated here.
Yes.
A champion and make it work. Look at Rocky Maivia. No one in America liked Rocky Maivia. He was a babyface that no one particularly liked because he was too babyface. And that's kind of the same with Sanada. And it could have worked if they were actually dedicated to it. A big issue with TNA, no matter how, you compare to the big boys like WWE, they're horrible with Japanese wrestlers. very horrible. Like, take for example Okada. You know, now the biggest name in Japan.
Well, that was what 10 years ago, though.
Yeah, but
I mean, we didn't have the same Okada. Like, if you look at
you didn't know
how he grew up,
know who he was gonna be.
He was a boy. Now he's the rainmaker, like the money making.
Well, look at the track record with all of the Japanese wrestlers that came from TNA.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them
Tanahashi was there too, by the way.
As a racist joke.
They're too gimmicky, you mean?
Well, yeah. Like, what was it? Okada was running that gimmick where he was like the Japanese guy in that Green Hornet movie.
Yeah.
He was like a butler for Samoa Joe.
Yeah.
And or look at when they brought in the Great Muta and Kurt Angle was talking to him saying, "You're going to be my tag team partner." They didn't have the Muta talk or anything. He just bowed his head in a Japanese style. Kurt Angle was sick and tired of it, decided to be racist and kicked them out. That because TNA doesn't know how to handle a Japanese product, especially if, you know, they're not fluent with American like language.
I was wrong, by the way. It was 6 years. It was 6 years for his like latest one, but before that also for Okada. You can shoot.
But basically, TNA needed a better understanding of how to book Japanese people.
Yeah.
It's, you know, kind of like how the WWE needs a better understanding of booking women. Like, they gotta realize that they're human and just put them in regular storylines.
Yeah.
And that was Lenny's last take on TNA.
Saya Sanada.